Our lives are so busy and complex, and I'm certainly guilty of having created a very busy and complex life, but I still appreciate the more peaceful things. I appreciate meditation, I appreciate exercise, I appreciate the outdoors, and these are things, as they say, that are free, that our peace and our communion with nature and all, that's something that we could all take advantage of. And it's always great to find that kind of quiet, peaceful time. Lincoln certainly reminds me of how important that is to do every day, because if I don't go out and exercise with him, he'll remind me. And sometimes I get so busy with work, it's easy for me to forget that. But because I always make sure that he gets his exercise, I make sure that I get my exercise. So I'll be talking about that a lot throughout the next 2 hours or so, because I think in this day and age we seem to look at the only solutions to all the things that ail us, and certainly we have a lot of things that ail us. We look at the only solutions as really being medicines and medications, and just constantly dealing with, say, illness. And it's the reason why at the latter stages I chose not to be a doctor, is that I had said actually to the dean of the school, I said, the day medicine focuses on wellness instead of illness is the day that I would want to practice medicine. Unfortunately, for the largest part of our medical industry in this country, that has not gotten any better in the last 30 years or so. Unfortunately, it's gotten worse. We focus more on illness. We don't invest in educating people about wellness and educating them about the opportunities that are right in front of them in terms of, I think might have been Socrates that said, let food be thy medicine. It certainly has been a concept that has existed for thousands of years, that food could be our medicine, but in our society today, food is certainly our undoing. And we now know that whether it's overweight or obesity and the consequences of that now kills more people and costs our society more than even cigarette smoking. I never thought that I would say that in my lifetime, but that's the case, because just in the last 30 or 40 years, the composition of the bodies of Americans has changed dramatically in terms of our overweight, obesity, and the like. So I'll talk a lot about not just what supplements can do, and certainly medicines offer all sorts of opportunities to us when we need to take them. But I think we rely on them too heavily, and we forget how much power we have. We forget how much we can do just with little decisions, and little decisions in a positive way beget more and more positive decisions. And it just is, it's a book called the Dao De Jing, which is sort of a philosophical book written by someone named Lao Tzu over 2,000 years ago. And I think the best translation, we sort of made it more Americanized. We say even a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. But I think the actual best translation is even the longest journey begins beneath your feet, meaning that even the longest journey, even the most difficult and arduous decision begins right beneath your feet. It begins right where you are, and not even with a step, but simply with a decision and simply with a choice. So hopefully, if I play any role at all, it's to encourage everyone to continue to educate and inform yourselves. We hear so much today that the media generates fake news and all of these crazy things. And certainly, we all have to be very skeptical and sometimes a little cynical about what we might read. But because of the internet and because of the media, we have an incredible opportunity, an incredible availability of information, and that information can help us make really good decisions. We need to be a careful filter of that information, and again, that's a role that I try to play. I try to be as objective as possible, even when it comes to supplements and supplement ingredients. I try to de-emphasize their implications in terms of disease or things like that. I leave that to other companies. The most important things that I can focus on are empowering you to make decisions that are healthy. I make what I believe are the best supplements in the world, where they're pure, they're additive free, they follow nature and science as closely as possible, yet they take a distant back seat. They are far less important, as wonderful as they might be, to the decisions we can make in terms of our diet and in terms of our lifestyle. And so it's very interesting that when folks, what is it they often say, when folks tell you their way is the only way, you know it isn't. So my way isn't the only way in terms of supplements, but the best way is to inform yourself, educate yourself, try to live a life that's more consistent with the interests of your body. Think about your body as somewhere that you live, and that how well you take care of that residence, that place you live, is going to determine the quality of your life and the length of your life. It's sadly inescapable that the consequences of how we treat where we live, our bodies, we're going to be the victims of those decisions, good or bad, or the beneficiary of the good decisions. There's no guarantees in life, but what I often say, science is a bit of a numbers game, and the more good decisions you make, the more you have the numbers working in your favor. The more bad decisions you make, as they often say, someone says, I know someone who never smoked and they got lung cancer at 30 years of age, or someone who smoked 2 packs a day and died at 90 years of age. Well, you could always cite individual examples like that for any kind of good or bad behavior. The fact is, if someone does smoke, they're dozens of times more likely to die not just of lung cancer, but a couple of dozen other kinds of cancers, or emphysema, or whatever it might be. So yes, you could cite individual examples of how bad behavior doesn't beget bad results, and good behavior can still see bad results. But by and large, the statistics are inescapable. The numbers are inescapable. So to the extent we can make good decisions, that they will deliver good results. So we talked about the monthly special, briefly talked about the Cholestacare and Fibermucil, which are basically at today's special pricing. So Cholestacare offers the same cholesterol lowering ingredient that our Choco Nuvo does. I encourage you to read the reviews on both. There's no escaping when you look at a blood test in black and white, seeing the benefits of these ingredients. And you'll read results for just hundreds, if actually thousands of individuals on those products where their cholesterol went down 10, 15, 25% or more, their total and LDL cholesterol, which is the important cholesterol, the LDL, that we want to lower. So now I'm going to get into questions. That's what I'm really here for. And there are a multitude of questions asking about all sorts of health issues, of which, of course, I'm not here to help you treat medical conditions or medical diseases. That's what you do with your doctor. Hopefully, I could provide information that will allow you to partner better with your doctor, because the doctors that I know like to have patients that are their partners. They like to have patients that are engaged in the decisions they make, that are aware of the medications they're taking, the consequences those medications can have. So hopefully what we do here is we make everybody a more empowered, more engaged, more active participant in their own good health, and working closely with their physicians. So, I mean, I've seen and I look at these questions, and so many of the questions come from individuals suffering from all sorts of health issues and health conditions. Some of them I haven't seen or heard mentioned for dozens, if not, say, a couple of decades. But it's fascinating when we look at ourselves, over 300 million Americans, and even issues that might have a small incidence in the population, it still means that tens of thousands of Americans suffer from them. So it's very easy with things like that to lose sight of the implications they have for those tens of thousands of people and their lives. So what I'll try to do is give the best answers I can to hopefully give you tools that you could take back to your doctor and discuss. But you won't hear from me, as much as people want to hear them, any prescriptive recommendations for supplements. That's just not what I do. It's just not what anyone should do when they're talking about supplements. Our health decisions are something we do in concert with our treating physicians. And say if your physician wasn't someone who had the open-mindedness you want, you could always seek another physician. And as they say, seek a second opinion. And thanks to the internet, it's relatively easy in most communities to locate a physician that might have a perspective that would be more consistent with where you want to go and how you want to be treated in the future. So I'll start with the questions here. And as the list says, it says unfiltered questions and blog response to date. So, and it has the names of everyone who asked them. And what's great about these questions is we might think it's our own individual question, but it's safe to say that almost every question I'll be dealing with, at least several dozen people had recently asked the same or a similar question. So just because your name wasn't on it, your name probably appeared down the list somewhere. So I'm going to do my very best to answer as many questions as possible. And also, Ed Moss, who is our creative director in Henderson, Nevada, he's here. And if there are any great questions that keep coming in even during the show, he'll bring them to me and I'll answer them on the fly. I mean, I just marked these questions up this morning, so it's not like I've done any research on them. I just marked them up so it'll be easy for me to scan through them and do as many questions as I possibly can. First question, which is just a question that I saw asked at least 50 times. Is there any vitamin or supplement that we make that can help in terms of supporting healthy blood pressure? Great question. There's no vitamin or supplement that I know that treats high blood pressure. But to the extent there are supplements that could help you in your efforts, and the most important efforts beyond following what your doctor says in terms of taking your medications, because we really don't want to move through the world with our blood pressure significantly above normal. Not a good thing. The consequences are absolutely they're terrible, the potential consequences. I won't elaborate on them, both short-term, acute consequences, and just long-term consequences of moving through our lifetime with hypertension, with high blood pressure. Not a good thing. So we want to make sure that we take the medications that are recommended. Simply, omega-3s, our omega-3s, Coenzyme Q10, both of those have been shown to help support and help promote healthy blood pressure levels. If you look at the research, both can be associated in certain studies with reductions of a few points each in blood pressure. So it's something that can make a significant difference. Coenzyme Q10, a couple of 100 milligrams a day, omega-3 fatty acids, 500 to 1,000 milligrams of actual omega-3s. That would be 2 capsules of our max omega-3. With most products, it would take 3 or 4 capsules. Our capsules are significantly smaller, but significantly higher potency. But those don't replace medications. They're not medications to lower blood pressure, but they do assist and support those efforts in that direction. We're currently evaluating some botanicals in that regard, some plant-based supplements. Again, not a cure or a medication for blood pressure, but just another tool to help us in a very, very important process. I've always had normal blood pressure thanks to my parents, both of whom have healthy blood pressure levels. But it's something that, because blood pressure is so important, I have a blood pressure cuff at home, and periodically, probably a few times a week, I just check it because it is a number that is so important for our good health. As I've often talked about on air, I'm someone who probably twice a year, I do a very detailed blood panel. Very detailed, probably more detailed than most people do, looking at some of the more obscure indices or levels that indicate internal inflammation, also looking at some of the greater detail on the lipid fractions and their particle size and things like that. So that's something that I always do, and just being aware of blood pressure, a very simple thing to do and something we need to manage. If you're taking a blood pressure medication, you should have a simple blood pressure monitor at home, and you should make sure that you're getting the proper results. Your doctor will be very happy you did to know that the medication is doing what it's supposed to be doing. No sense taking a blood pressure medication and not knowing that it's working, and taking that medication and, say, finding out that it's not delivering the right results. Your doctor can either change your dosage or your doctor can provide a different medication. But it's something that we want to be very carefully aware of. So as far as supplements, there's no, much to the dismay of other folks in the supplement industry who will make all sorts of crazy claims, there is no supplement ingredient that I'm aware of that can deliver those kinds of benefits. As I said before, CoQ10, omega-3s, supportive in that direction, absolutely supportive in that direction. And we're evaluating certain, and I might as well say what they are, what we're specifically evaluating are certain extracts of olive leaf that could make a fairly significant difference in blood pressure. So, and of course, the most important things in terms of blood pressure, for those of us who need to lose weight, nothing will deliver benefits like weight loss. Nothing can deliver benefits like improving your lifestyle, becoming more active. Of course, follow your doctor's recommendations in terms of activity. And what I've also found is, and I'll talk about this more a little bit later, I'm always someone who, say, goes for a run or goes for a hike with Link, but often what we'll do is, say if I go for a long hike in the mountains with him, I'll periodically, every minute or two, I'll do a 100 or 200 yard sprint. I do intervals, intense intervals. You want to make sure you're cleared to do those sorts of things. But in terms of neurological benefits, in terms of physiologic benefits, in terms of blood pressure, in terms of adapting our cells and the genetic material in our cells, in terms of the benefits to our brain, interval training has been shown in recent studies, several recent studies, to be highly beneficial. So again, activity, changing your diet. For those of us who might be sodium sensitive, reducing our salt intake is also beneficial. So I spent a little bit of time on that question simply because it's important to so many of us. But I don't think many of us realize the significance of the benefits to our blood pressure level and our ability to control our blood sugar levels that result from modifications in our body composition, from losing body fat, from changing our diet around. Absolutely enormous benefits to be derived from that. So, and also most people don't realize that our body composition, a higher level of body fat, that also contributes to an increased cancer risk in most forms of cancer. So to the extent we can move through our lives in our world at close to our normal body weight, our ideal body weight, that doesn't just have benefits cardiovascularly and say cerebrovascularly, the circulatory, the blood vessels that nourish our brain, but also has benefits in terms of reducing our cancer risk across the board. So there's all sorts of benefits to achieving our ideal body weight, and that's why I often say the most important thing we could possibly do is to eat healthy, because in my world 80 to 90% of body weight isn't about exercise, it's about what we ate. We don't gain weight, we don't become overweight or obese without eating the foods that will then constitute or were the calories that became that stored body fat. So no matter what our issues we might have with our endocrine system, our hormonal issues, we still had to consume those calories. You had to consume that food that end up becoming that body fat. So certainly exercise, you won't find a stronger advocate for exercise than I am, but exercise is not the major factor when it comes to our body weight. Exercise is a major factor in terms of a whole host of positive physiologic, neurologic changes, biochemical changes in our body that are so incredibly healthy. But exercise is not the be-all and end-all of weight loss. The be-all and end-all of weight loss is the food that we eat. Changing the quality, changing the composition and its quantity. That's the key to weight loss. But I digress there. Next question. And the first question about blood pressure was from Mabel. The next question is from Glenda, asking about, lately physicians have been prescribing Flonase for sinus allergy problems. They do this up in the mountains here too, because in the mountains, short growing season, it's like the world of pollen up here. I normally have no allergies at all, but even up here, I'll notice my eyes will be a little teary and a little more irritated because it's such a short growing season. If you see the flowers behind me in the yard, there were no flowers there a couple of weeks ago. It's amazing how Mother Nature comes alive in the mountains at high altitude. So, and this time of year for so many people, my dad suffers from allergies. So for many doctors recommend Flonase or other ingredients like that. In terms of vitamins for sinuses and things, it's so difficult. Again, I wish I could tell you there was some magic dietary supplement ingredient for the health of our sinuses or for reaction to allergies. You'll often read things talking about having adequate levels of B vitamins. So what it all ends up boiling down to the extent we're healthy nutritionally, that supports our body's best reaction to these external allergens. So, but there's no, again, our immune factors, there'll be many people who said the immune factors supports them wonderfully during allergy season. Echinacea and golden seal are often talked about for their important benefits in terms of how we react to allergens. B-complex vitamins and vitamin C, of course, both of which are present in that product. But again, I wish I could say there was some magic ingredient that does wonders. What I often hear people talk about, it's something that I often munch on, a tablespoon here and there, bee pollen. Many people will say, and of course you have to be wary if you're sensitive to the bee pollen, because you could have a significant reaction. At a convention, I once had to give CPR to someone who had a significant reaction to bee pollen they ingested. But bee pollen is something that most people ingest without incident whatsoever. And many people have said that to the extent you eat bee pollen from your region, it could help you develop an appropriate sort of a response, give you a bit of an immune, sort of acts as sort of a way to diminish the immune response you would have otherwise had to that local pollen that's contained in that bee pollen. So again, I haven't seen any clinical studies or clinical science that validates that, but again, it's something that's been spoken about, and bee pollen is healthy. Bee pollen is a source of all sorts of important phytonutrients, so it's just something that I often put a tablespoon or two in my smoothie, or I just love the taste, I'll have a tablespoon on its own. So I wish I could give greater indication of what's magical when it comes to allergies or sinus issues. And up here in the mountains, because the humidity is so dramatically low, especially throughout the year, winter and summer, that sinus issues almost go with the territory up here. So what I'll often do up here is I'll always sleep with a humidifier on at night, which tends to keep the sinuses and your respiratory tract nice and moist, because at 8,000 plus feet of altitude, it's incredibly dehydrating. Also, there are all sorts of you could use a neti pot with saline solution, which just allows water to flow, saline water, to flow through your sinuses, up your nose and out the other nasal passage. And then, of course, there's some products now that actually have a saline mist that can be palliative for your sinuses. So all sorts of things you could do. You could also do some research on the internet. They have wonderful things that can be done, but follow the recommendations of your doctor. What's often difficult is folks going on high levels of antibiotics for long periods of time to treat tissues that are sometimes not all that well permeated with antibiotics. So again, I leave that to your doctors. Marge is asking, do I have a supplement that combines both fruit and vegetables? Keep hearing commercials for products of this type that do wonders and are really expensive, but not sure what garbage ingredients they might contain. Only used my products for 15 years and have great results. Thanks, Andrew. You're the best. God bless. Very nice. So many of these I'll just read as wonderful testimonials, not just questions. We actually have our fruitful antioxidant extracts and our cruciferous extracts products. Those are very serious products where we do actual extracts of the fruit or extracts of the cruciferous. You could take the capsule. You could also empty it into your smoothie. To give you a sense, the blueberry extract in that product costs hundreds of dollars per kilogram. You could buy straight dried blueberries for a few dollars a kilogram. So they cost hundreds of times more because they're standardized for the most important ingredient, which are their anthocyanins, their naturally protective compounds. Something I also do, so I'll digress here. This is my jasmine tea, but it doesn't look like my jasmine tea. Why? Because I put a teaspoon of an ultra blueberry concentrate. What I've been doing lately with my teas is I put a teaspoon of a blueberry concentrate extract or a pomegranate concentrate extract. These are liquids. Or the other is a tart cherry. Each contains different complements of anthocyanins and extracts. And I'm assessing them now, evaluating them now. If I think they're worthy of being presented to you, I will. That teaspoon contains probably about 10 or 20 calories, obviously the natural sugars in the plant. But what these concentrates are really concentrates of the protective compounds in either blueberry, tart cherry, or pomegranate. Lincoln just changed beds. So that's just something I've been doing here because I recognize the importance of those protective compounds in those foods. What I'm also going to be doing, because so many of us, myself included, do smoothies and things like that. Sometimes we do vegetable smoothies, which Muriel loves to do, or fruit smoothies, which I love to do. What we're going to create, we're going to take our cruciferous extracts, we're going to blend that with our green foods concentrate. which is concentrates of spirulina, chlorella, blue-green algae, wheatgrass, and barley grass, of course, all gluten-free. And that will be sort of a green addition to your smoothie. Then we'll take our fruitful antioxidant extracts, and then we'll blend it with more still high levels of protective compounds, but not the several $100 a kilo, because that would mean a small container would cost several $100s. But we'll blend it with some of the dried fruits that will deliver a delicious flavor. So you could add it to your yogurt, your oatmeal, or a smoothie and get some of the benefits of the fruitful antioxidants. You can get those benefits as well, of course, from the capsule, but get the same benefits in the product and the wonderful flavor of some natural fruit extracts. So those will be coming. And the difference between my products and everyone else's is those products will contain no added ingredients whatsoever. Those products will all contain a disclosure of the concentrate, the standardization, what most of these other products on the market have, almost all of them, just have a magical blend. They don't disclose at all the standardization, which means telling you the levels of anthocyanins from that blueberry extract or from that cherry extract. We, of course, always do that. The level of punicalagins that came from the pomegranate extract or the ellagic acid from the pomegranate extract. These might sound like crazy, obscure words to you, but that's what indicates whether you're making a good investment or not. The levels of anthocyanins from dried blueberry are going to be a tiny, tiny fraction of the levels present from my $500 a kilo extract of blueberry. So it's something that you deserve to know, and it's something that the only way we will make a product like this, like our cruciferous extracts. Every cruciferous vegetable in that cruciferous extract product comes with a specific disclosure of the levels of protective compounds it delivers. You deserve to know that. That's how we designate. In fact, when we evaluate each ingredient, that's how we evaluate it. I don't think the other folks out there making products like it care, and they simply buy based upon the purchase price, not based upon the beneficial compound and the value you're getting in terms of getting that beneficial compound. So again, that was a bit of a long answer to a relatively brief question, but and also you'll hear me say it's coming, that this product is coming, and we tend to introduce just maybe 1 or 2 or 3 new products a year at most. We focus on making the best products in the world. I really don't focus on making new products. Only to the extent the science and you demand that I do that, do I make new products. So whereas most companies, my company's been around for 38 years, most companies who've been in the supplement industry for 38 years have probably 1,000, 2,000 products or more. We don't even have 10% of that. They have a whole range of personal care products and cleansing products and beauty products and over thousands of supplement ingredients. I don't. We focus on making the very best products we can, and we do it one at a time. And we try to keep it simple, because I think if I had 2,000 or more products, as some of the big supplement companies do, that aren't even as old as my company, all that would do would be confuse you. And I try to keep it simple and straightforward. Speaking of new products, and I'm digressing all over the place, I know, I had to bring these out because these are 2 samples I got from our laboratory. That we now have a laboratory that's developing some cleansing products. I really don't want to get into beauty products at this point, even though that's the single most common request we get online and in my call center at my company, our customer care center, is for beauty products. What I want to do first is deal with cleansing products, because cleansing products are kind of nasty for the environment. And I was hoping to create cleansing products that were 100% perfect for the environment and hopefully performed on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe 8 out of 10. We've created these wonderfully perfect products in terms of the environment, and we've been testing and evaluating them, and they perform as a 10 out of 10. We have a purifying shampoo, a dish soap, and a hand soap. But of course, knowing me, I didn't want to move forward unless I could make them totally preservative free, which is something you don't see. And we took some lessons we've learned with our supplement products, and we were able to make them. We just got the challenge test results back yesterday, in fact, where you actually inoculate them with bacteria and make sure that they don't become a home for that bacteria. And we got the challenge test results back and passed with flying colors. So we'll be able to probably be another, unlike other companies, again, we take our time. And we've been working on these for probably 5 years, probably take another 6 to 9 months. And we'll have these very simple, and the raw materials they use probably cost 10 to 20 times more than your typical shampoo or your typical dish soap or your typical hand soap. But nevertheless, probably be able to get a quart bottle of this and it won't even cost you $20. And because they're ultra concentrates, we don't add water. That's part of the reason we can get away without preservatives. It'll be more effective and less expensive than the stuff you get in stores, which is pretty exciting. Plus, wonderful for the environment, because every year I would imagine hundreds of millions of pounds of nasty surfactants, so these soapy agents, are spilled out into the environment that don't biodegrade quickly or in a positive fashion, and our products will. So by using our products affordably and economically, we displace these other ingredients that are not the friends to us personally or to the environment. I'm calling those products eco-eco, because the reason I say eco, ecology, eco is something that comes back to us. So whether we realize it or not, everything we use, every soap we use, it all goes down the drain. It doesn't stay with us. And so we have to be aware of the consequences, because in one way or another, whether it's to us or to our children or our children's children, it all comes back to us. So those will be coming patiently. So please forgive that whether it's pet supplements or so many other different products. I'll talk about this later. Someone asked about chai tea, and yes, we'll have a chai tea made from green tea, but we've been working on it for years. So nothing gets made. Most companies, dozens and dozens and dozens of products come out, and the CEO of that company or the owner of that company never sees them. They just come out. For me, you will never see a product until I've been personally involved in its development, in its use, in its approval, and then I will not only that, I'll write the label for it. So there are other products you'll see coming out, but this is, as many of you rely on our products, this is we're still a mom and pop. We might have the most sophisticated manufacturing facility in the supplement industry, and I would put ours up against anyone's in terms of its cleanliness, in terms of its technology, in terms of its sophistication, in terms of the fact that it's entirely solar powered. But we still operate like a small company, one product at a time. The most important product is the product that we're making at that time, and the most important product is the product that you are using. And we don't develop a new product. There's no shareholders to say we need more products, we need more sales. I'm the only shareholder, and the only thing I want to make are wonderful products, and the most important products are the ones we make today. And I think last year, really the only new product we came out with back, it was a year and a half or so, was our Choco Nuvo. Otherwise, not a lot of new products, because we're patiently developing products based on the science and making sure that when the product comes out, it's going to be, as they say at HSN, a customer pick. My products have over 50,000 reviews, averaging between 80 and 85% 5-star reviews. Some are over 90% 5-star reviews, but averaging between 4.6 and 4.7 stars. All of them customer picks. That's because we don't introduce a product unless we know it's going to be a great product, and it's not a labor of a few weeks or a few months. It's a labor of several years. So my apologies that we're not as business focused as we are quality focused, but we're going to do our best to bring out some products. In terms of our not having pet supplements, yes, that could be a very large business for us. But again, I'm not making, business decisions here. I'll talk about, Lincoln's over there now, I'll talk about our supplements that that I give to Lincoln, that there's no reason why your dog should be taking inferior supplements to you. So the ingredients in my supplements are perfect for pets. And we'll talk about what I dose Lincoln and what I give to him. And he's as important as anyone could possibly be in my life. We all talk about our pets, and our pets are They are the living things in our lives that we get to love perfectly and love us back perfectly. Doesn't come with any of the baggage that our human relationships have. So our pets, as I always say about Link, he deserves the special care. He deserves to eat great food because his every breath is based upon keeping me happy. That is his focus. Maybe he's a little bit more that way because he's part sheepdog, so he thinks this is his job to be working for me all the time. But so I'll talk about pet supplements in a little bit when I get to those questions. As you can see, this is kind of free form and unstructured. I've almost been talking for, well, only about 40 minutes, so we're doing well. We still have, because I'll talk for at least 2 hours, and hopefully you find this interesting, and hopefully I'm going to give some questions that will give some answers to questions that will empower your decisions. But the next question, that was Marge's question. Next question, can you take too many Ultimate Eye Support? That's our product that delivers anthocyanins from blueberry extract, also delivers from other ingredients as well, also delivers high levels of lutein and zeaxanthin, the things that we are not getting from the green leafy vegetables that we're not eating. Lutein and zeaxanthin are the critical carotenoids that are the optical pigments in our retina, particularly in the macular region of our retina. They protect those tissues from age-related changes, from oxidative damage. It's no wonder the way we eat in our society that we struggle with the health of our retina and the macular region of our retina. Also, omega-3s. The DHA that we focus on in our omega-3s, that's the secondary ingredient in typical 99% of the omega-3s. That is the principal fatty acid in your, not just your brain, but also in the retina and the macular region, the retina of our eyes. So the question is, can I take too many of eye support? I have chronic Lyme's disease. That's not a good thing. My sight was getting so much worse that my eye doctor said to get new glasses, changing my prescription. So I decided to take your eye support. I was taking 2 a day. I'm taking on the average 4 to 6 a day of your eye support for several weeks now. I've noticed a marked improvement on my vision lately. I was even able to read my newspaper again without glasses. Haven't seen my eye doctor since my vision is improved. What do you think? 4 to 6, not a problem. Ultimate Eye Support, the key ingredients in Ultimate Eye Support, it's not an ingredient that I would say that you're going to have issues taking too much of. My mom takes 4 of Ultimate Eye Support a day. I take 2 daily. Typical 1 or 2 is fine. If you have specific issues or problems, simply show it to your doctor. All with the 4 to 6 daily, you're simply increasing. 2 capsules is going to be giving you 10 milligrams of lutein and 5 milligrams of zeaxanthin daily. So by doubling that, you're getting to 20 and 10, which is not problematic. Even if you're at 30 and 15 or 40 and 20, it isn't problematic. The levels of vitamin C won't become problematic, and the other botanicals are not going to be an issue as well. So that's not a problem. 1 or 2 is more than enough based upon the clinical science. But if you had specific issues, you could take more. What I would also recommend is astaxanthin. Astaxanthin is another carotenoid that is concentrated in the tissues of the eye and have been seen both in concentration and protective benefits for the retina, but particularly with accommodation, talking about reading a newspaper, that close vision that we tend to struggle with as we get older, and our eyes' capacity to focus up close diminishes with age. So again, that wouldn't be a problem. There are certain products that you don't want it to be taking more of. There's a question I'll be coming to in a moment that talked about, we make a few different multivitamins. Our Essential One has become our most popular multivitamin. We then make Complete, our Complete family of formulas. What the Complete does is it affords you an affordable or economical opportunity to get omega-3s with your multivitamin, to get higher levels of B complex if you chose, higher levels of calcium with your multivitamin, also certain forms of the Complete to come with CoQ10. What they are is designed to be more comprehensive formulas that replace multiple products. But to the extent you're taking one, you do not take the other. So if you're taking, say, our Complete with omega-3, then you do not take Essential One as well, because you already have your foundational multivitamin, multi-mineral nutrition, whether it's with Essential One or whether it's with one of our Complete formulas. Once you're taking one of those, you don't duplicate. If you're taking a single packet of one of those multivitamins and you want more, you don't take 2 packets. You look at the specific other nutrients you might want in addition, but you don't repeat the entire foundational formula, because that's a formula that has levels of minerals and trace minerals and certain other nutrients that you don't need to double up on and you shouldn't double up on. So to the answer to your question, that would be taking too much if you're doubling up on any one of our multivitamins. So as hopefully that was reasonably clear. Again, on that question with taking more of the Ultimate Eye, very important to get foundational nutrition of omega-3s. Ours focuses on DHA, which is most important for the eye. So if you don't get mine, make sure you're focusing on DHA for the health of your eye. The next question was talking about the multivitamins, so I just answered that question. Linda was asking the question on whether taking 4 to 6 of the Ultimate Eye was problematic. Not at all, simply talk to your doctor. Kathy was asking the question about doubling up on multivitamins. That's a formula you don't double up on. Taking 2 multivitamins is taking too much. Take 1 at a time and then specifically, intelligently focus on other things you might want more of. Might be vitamin D, might be CoQ10, might be B12, but you look specifically at those individual ingredients. And from Teresa, this is a question I'll answer a few times over and over. I guess I sort of touched on it. Can a person take too many vitamins and supplements? The answer could be yes. With my products, the answer is no, simply because of how we go about making them and how we go about recommend you take them. We're often asked about B12, and there's a question here that I should probably skip ahead to that asked about B12, and it was a fascinating question because someone was saying that they were getting too high levels of B12 when they tested at their doctor's office. The levels that most blood tests, the standard that they use for too high, I view that as kind of low, but regardless, the fact that we've heard on a few occasions that people's B12 levels have gotten high actually, and this might sound bad, actually is a vote of confidence in my products. Most doctors will tell you that B12 isn't absorbable from supplements, that B12 isn't well absorbed at all from food and relatively unavailable from food. However, our B12, because of the way we go about making it and delivering it to you, is not just highly absorbable and available, but very. That is why over the last 10 years, last 15 years actually, when we introduced our protected cyanocobalamin, I reduced the levels of B12 across the board in all of our products. I have been steadily reducing those levels for the past 15 years because now our B12, which is a natural methyl form of B12 that you will not see as a protected form of B12 in anyone else's products but our own. In fact, I've received feedback from folks in our customer care center who've said that individuals who, even with our prior protected B12, would still occasionally need to go in to get a B12 injection, no longer need to any longer. So our B12 is something that I have been steadily reducing the B12 in all of our products. Our multivitamins used to, on the low side, have 250 to 500 micrograms of B12 or more. Our highest potency B12 used to have 1,000 micrograms. Now our multivitamins have not 1,000, not 250, not 500. It's gone significantly down. So in fact, our Essential One has 250 now. So we've reduced our multivitamins, which is the foundational source of B12. Our CoQ10 used to contain 250 micrograms in each capsule. It now is down to 25 and 50 micrograms. We've done that across the board in virtually all of the formulas. Not virtually, in all the formulas. In fact, now our B12 formulas, we used to have a 1,000, 2,000, and 5,000 microgram B12 formula, 1, 2, and 5 milligram, 1,000, 2,000, 500. Now our highest potency B12, because our B12 is so bioavailable and bioactive, our highest potency is 500. And I recommend most people get the 250, even if they think they have B12 issues. Try the 250 or the 100 first, because our B12 has become so active and so potent. So again, It's often pointed out, I've heard the question so often, that you have to realize the more that we've made products that contain B12, hair, skin, and nails contains a little B12 and B complex. Why? Because if it's the only formula you're taking, and biotin is a member of the B complex family, biotin requires its other B complex partners to benefit you. If that is the only formula of mine you're taking, yes, it begins to function like a baby multivitamin, but we need to deliver the full B complex. So recognizing that, in fact, we've lowered the B complex, not the biotin, but we've lowered the B complex in our healthy hair, skin, and nails in the last 20 years. It's half of what it was 20 years ago because of the level of effectiveness, the bioavailability, the bioactivity of our B complex and our B12. In our CoQ10, it's less than half of what it was when I introduced it over 30 years ago. So again, this is something we closely monitor and we closely assess to make sure that you're getting the proper levels. If you're only taking my CoQ10, you must get the B complex and the B12 for it to be the best CoQ10 in the world, which it is. But because I also recognize that, like me, most of you are taking several of my formulas, we've adjusted those levels. And because the B complex and B12 are so potent and active now, even if that's the only product you're taking, it will be the best B12 you've ever taken, even though it might be 20% the potency of the prior B12. So hopefully that answered the question. If you follow the suggested use on my products, there is absolutely zero risk of your getting too much of anything. And the most important thing, as I said before, you only take one daily dosage of a multivitamin, multimineral. That's the most important thing. As far as CoQ10, you could take several capsules of that without problem. As far as vitamin D, there was just something published recently which extremely discouraging. It was published and it made it sound like it was some scientific study or clinical study that said Americans are getting too much vitamin D. It was nothing of the kind. It was simply reporting the fact that Americans are now supplementing vitamin D and wanted to be alarmist that Americans could get too much vitamin D. The simple way to know that you're getting the right level of vitamin D is to take a blood test. Plus, there's been absolutely no science or clinical research that shows any risk, any harm whatsoever, even if you were taking 10,000 IU of vitamin D daily. And of course, that's not what you need to take. Typical person will take 2,000 to 4,000 IU daily. You need to take at least 1,000, at least 1,000. And by the way, even the levels that are established as the desirable levels, those are based on old science and they are far too low. The levels I think are ideal is a little above 50, that's the number you seek. I say ideally between 60 and 80. I like it when I'm in the 70s. Some doctors might recommend between 80 and 100 if you have specific health issues. I know several doctors who do that. So again, vitamin D, that was not a clinical study that was published that had analyzed individuals and found that they had harmful levels of vitamin D, not in the least. And as I often say, more is not better. The right level is the right level. And less taking something inconsistent with the science, which is the way a lot of supplements are made, multivitamins in particular. They deliver 2 levels in terms of B complex. They deliver B12 that isn't available. They deliver vitamin D that is essentially a meaningless level at a few hundred IU. So you need to take the right level. You don't want to take too much. More is not better. When you get the right level, that is ideal. And with vitamin D, typically 2,000 to 4,000 IU. I take about 4,000 IU daily. So that was that. Here's a question. I'm in the process of getting off my medications. One was an antidepressant to help prevent migraines. I now have trouble sleeping. Melatonin at nighttime. How much is too much nighttime? Again, obviously, antidepressants and things like that are highly neuroactive. Not only do they affect our brain when we take them, but they cause changes in our brain thereafter. So when you change those kind of medications, I'm sure your doctors will tell you, you have to be patient. To the extent we can make positive lifestyle changes, to the extent we could focus, say, in terms of sleep, on sleep hygiene. I sleep in a room that's typically between 65 and 68 degrees. The cooler the room, the better you sleep. There's even great studies on if you were wearing some kind of a hat that was a cooling hat, like a swim cap that had cool water running through it, so it cooled down your head. In studies that performed better than sleeping pills. And of course, when you're cooling your head, there's no neurological changes due to some drugs you're taking, which most sleep-inducing drugs, certainly benzodiazepines, things like Xanax or Valium or things, adversely affect the chemistry in our brain in terms of sleep. Sleeping pills do the same. So to the extent we could avoid them and work with your doctor to make changes, but again, our brain is a very, very powerful organ, and neurochemistry is a very delicate and fragile chemistry. Things like meditation, learning to control our breathing, finding peaceful activities. It's fascinating to me that I could lay down in bed and I could read something on an electronic device and I'm not sleepy at all. But the minute I sit down and read a book, especially for me, I just read books in French. But if I read fiction, not a study, but if I read fiction, within a page or two, my eyes are heavy and sleeping. That we can all find behaviors that are, hopefully we can, that are relaxing. One of the reasons I exercise as actively as I do, as much as I do, is because it encourages better sleep. It encourages better relaxation. So we're not just the victims of our chemistry or our genetics or our lives. If we realize that our quality of our life and our happiness and our health is important, we just listen to our body. And our body gives us little glimmers of hope. Our body gives us little opportunities of things that might help us with sleep, behaviors of what we might eat and when we might eat, and avoiding caffeine later in the day. I switch over from my green tea a little after lunchtime. Because caffeine, we might feel that when we have coffee, we get a buzz from it immediately. But that caffeine is still hanging around 8 hours later. So if we want to sleep well and we're going to bed at 10, 11, 12 o'clock, we best not have had caffeine after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And frankly, if sleep is a problem, I would eliminate caffeine completely. I had a bad crash on my bike a number of years ago and had a bit of a head injury. It affected my sleep. And as much as I love green tea and its effects, and studies have shown that even coffee has all sorts of beneficial effects, but we have to be aware of their neurological effects and their stimulatory effects. And because I was concerned about my sleep, I made caffeine go away for probably about 9 months. I also, and I'll talk about this later when a lot of other issues come up like autoimmune issues, that alcohol. Muriel is French. So for Muriel, wine is almost a religion. So for me, I like drinking wine, and I like fine wine. But for every evening I might have a glass or two of fine wine, there'll be an evening I don't. So I make sure there's sort of a compensating day. That might not be the case for Muriel, but I try to engage in habits that I think that might not be entirely healthy in a balanced way, in a moderate way. But if someone is suffering from autoimmune issues or things like that, which we'll talk about later, you need to really be careful of the foods you eat, whether they're provocative foods or not. And things like alcohol and certainly things like caffeine, coffee can be provocative foods. But again, there's all sorts of wonderful research, if it doesn't cause us problems, that moderate coffee consumption, because coffee, if you don't add all sorts of nasty things to it, but coffee is just a water extract of the coffee bean. Just like tea is an extract of green tea leaves, that water-based extract, extracting these healthy phytochemicals, these healthy nutrients, so protective compounds. So coffee consumed moderately, if we don't add bad things to it, actually has been shown to have a very long list of health benefits. So again, moderation is the key. Some of us, even small consumption of things is unacceptable if our body is already communicating to us that it has issues. So we're talking about sleep before. I think most of us, if we listen to our body, tells us the behaviors that are consistent with better sleep, because there is absolutely few things worse than not being able to sleep. Both the torment of not being able to sleep and then the impact on the quality of the day that follows is just, for many people, I've experienced it myself. It's something that I read in emails or letters I receive. It's just the kind of torture that is no fun at all. So to the extent we can listen to our body and try to find behaviors, whether it's meditation, relaxation. I do things like yoga and I meditate. As much as I love to exercise, as much as I love to work hard, and probably the single greatest criticism I get from my family and my friends is that I work too much. But I love my work, so it doesn't seem like work. But I know when I work, that's something that's neurostimulatory, that stimulates the nervous system. So I need to engage in activities that are more soothing to my body and soothing to my immune system, my nervous system. And that's why among other reasons, why I exercise, why I meditate, why I do yoga. So we have to listen to our body, and if we want to have the best life, it requires our making decisions to have that best life. It's not something that happens from outside. It's something that starts on the inside. Question from Beth was talking about calcium bumps under the skin, and can she take calcium? I'm not sure necessarily about the diagnosis of calcium bumps under the skin. Obviously, calcium is an essential nutrient. We hear questions about this all the time. People are concerned about calcification of their arteries and how that might constitute a risk for cardiovascular disease. And as far as I'm concerned, the most important thing to focus on, certainly, vitamin D and calcium, critical for our bone health. We must absorb calcium. It's an essential nutrient. But the most important thing as part of that entire equation with calcium, vitamin D, and also, say, magnesium, is vitamin K2, MK7. Thanks, Ed. We have even more questions. So, so the vitamin K2, MK7 is something that's absolutely essential when we supplement calcium. When we supplement vitamin D, you can't absorb calcium without vitamin D. And also, vitamin D really functions in our body not like a vitamin. It functions like a prohormone. So vitamin D, it invades, if not hundreds, thousands of different processes and reactions in our body. And we need to make sure that we move through our lives with healthy vitamin D levels. That is, when you look at the clinical science and clinical research, and you look at wanting to reduce overall risk of disease long-term in our life, two of the things I could say without a doubt that we want to do, we want to move through life at our ideal weight, and we want to move through life with optimum vitamin D levels. Interestingly enough, if we move through life overweight, it robs us of our vitamin D, because being overweight or obese, vitamin D is fat soluble. It is sequestered and sort of imprisoned. It's trapped in our body fat. So it's sort of interesting. One of the risks of being overweight or obese is that it reduces the availability of vitamin D in our body. So all things being equal, someone who is overweight or obese, supplementing vitamin D or not, their vitamin D levels will be worse. So those two might be connected. So I'm just going to digress here and answer some of these new questions. Morale is asking this question. Can you talk about your new DHEA 25 and what does it do? Dehydroepiandrosterone. It's a hormone. It's something that I would do some research if I were you online. It's something that only needs to be taken or should be taken after you've gotten a blood test result from your doctor telling you your DHEA levels are low. And then 25 milligrams, with something like this, less is more. 25 milligrams should be more than adequate. But again, only do so working with your doctor, specific advice of your physician. DHEA is something that I noticed that as I got older, it wasn't until I was about 50, and yes, I'm over 50, that I noticed my DHEA levels had changed and had gone down to a significant level. And taking 25 milligrams of DHEA was all I needed to do to get it back to the level that we wanted. So again, DHEA is something you only supplement working with your physician. It's only something that you supplement based upon a blood test and the advice of that physician. So, and it's typically something that you will not need to supplement until in all likelihood you're over the age of 35, 40 or more. So again, that's the thing with DHEA. Kind of like vitamin D, you should know what your blood levels are. Most people will need to take about 4,000 IU of vitamin D daily to get the ideal blood levels. Minimum of 1,000 to 2,000 IU daily. But again, blood test will tell you exactly what you need to know and it'll get you exactly where you need to be. DHEA need a blood test, need to talk to your doctor before you supplement it, because also DHEA, or I often say that, and I used to say this back in school when we were working in neurophysiology, as obscure as the nervous system and the brain and the working of our nervous system seemed to be, that there was no doubt that the complexity of our endocrine system, our hormones in our body, is by far even more complex, and even today, 30 plus years later, very poorly understood. Well understood to some degree, but still there's a lot that goes beyond what we have truly comprehended in how to manage the endocrine system. It's like, I think we try to push buttons, and what happens is lots of other things happen as a cascading reaction from those buttons that we've pushed. So we have to be very careful how we interact with the endocrine system for just that reason. And DHEA has an effect and an impact on our primary hormones in our body. So we want to make sure that we're dealing with that with the guidance of a physician very carefully, because of the impact it has in dozens of different areas. So again, blood test, doctor's advice, and then take 25 milligrams, and that should be more than plenty. So, Faith, how much magnesium should a woman take daily? Is magnesium effective for pain management? Magnesium is not a drug for pain management. No mineral is, no vitamin is, no matter what other companies might tell you. On a daily basis, a few hundred milligrams of magnesium is usually adequate. It depends upon absorption and the form that's being delivered. I like to look at calcium and magnesium being taken together, and then when you're taking the two together, again, you have to make sure that you're getting the vitamin K2 MK7. We currently make a 50 milligram vitamin K2 MK7. I take more than that daily. We're going to be coming out with a 100 and a 200 milligram vitamin K2 MK7. Also, our calcium magnesium intensive care, we make a version of it with vitamin K2 MK7 combined. We also have a calcium intensive care with vitamin K2 MK7 in it. I'm going to be doubling the potency on that, so it will go from 50 milligrams of K2 MK7 to 100 milligrams. The 50 milligram of that one will go away. We'll still keep the standalone 50 milligram of K2 MK7. We'll then have a 100 and a 200. They'll be coming out in, I would say, the next probably 30 to 60 days. We don't make a lot of, as I said, new products. That's simply a different potency of an existing product, and that's responding to my requirement and also the requests that we've already heard, that you wanted to take 100 or 200 milligrams of the K2 MK7. Because vitamin K1 doesn't deliver that benefit. Vitamin K1 does not deliver important essential nutrient, important for blood clotting and all, but it doesn't deliver the benefits of vitamin K2 MK7 in terms of managing the calcium in your body. And it's absolutely critical. And it might sound odd to say that one of the most important things we could all do for cardiovascular health is take vitamin K2 MK7 because of its role in calcium management, but it actually relates to the fact that vitamin K2 MK7, it's sort of the traffic cop in terms of calcium movement in our body. It makes sure that calcium stays where it needs to stay, and that it doesn't go where it's not supposed to go, say in arteries or other tissues in our body. And again, I leave this to your doctors because so many Americans, not just women, might suffer from osteopenia or osteoporosis. Unfortunately, the medications that treat that, the most popular ones I think are the bisphosphonates, and there's a system in our bone with osteoblasts and osteoclasts, and osteoblasts build bone, new bone, osteoclasts break down the bone, and it's constantly modeling and remodeling the bone. It's a constant cycling and recycling of that tissue. Unfortunately, the way bisphosphonates work, I think they kind of take offline the osteoclasts. So yes, that might be good because osteoclasts don't break down bone then, but part of the normal recycling and remodeling and modeling and creating healthy new bone is the osteoclast breaking down so new bone can be created. So I'm not sure how much in the interests of healthy bones the bisphosphonates are. Again, it's an important conversation to have with an enlightened physician and not something we'll resolve here today. But most important, if your doctor's recommending you take high levels of calcium, don't take more than 500 milligrams at a time. It can't be absorbed. So you need to divide it up. Make sure you're taking the proper form. There were dozens of questions about calcium citrate. Calcium citrate is not a magical form of calcium. It's just the form that's gotten the most monetary, economic, and advertising support behind it. So doctors are recommending it. Even calcium carbonate, although it has a buffering effect, dollar for dollar, bang for the buck, as long as you're not taking too much at one time. Calcium carbonate is a good form of calcium. Calcium citrate is a very good form. Calcium malate, a very good form. Even calcium lactate is a good form. There's also calcium orotate, a good form. So there's dozens of good forms of calcium. The important issue, 500 milligrams elemental at one time. What we do is we balance multiple forms so you get the highest solubility and the highest availability at the most economic price. And then, of course, important vitamin D. You can't absorb calcium adequately without it. And then vitamin K2, MK7, which supports the healthy retention of calcium and healthy bone in your body. So if you're taking those bisphosphonates or any other medication, vitamin K2, MK7 becomes even more important. If you're supplementing calcium, vitamin K2, MK7 becomes even more important. And as I said, in the not too distant future, we'll have higher potencies of that available. So as I continue, what else? The difference between carnosine caps or liquid, which is better? Interesting question. Our carnosine liquid is going to be going away. What we're going to be coming out with in the future that's going to be even better, because we have carnosine capsules, but that only delivers a couple of 100 milligrams in a capsule. Carnosine is very difficult, carnitine is very difficult to encapsulate. But what we're going to be doing is, and it's going to be really affordable, we're going to have a powder. It has virtually no taste. It can be mixed with water, even mixed with, say, a smoothie. It's like half a teaspoon is all you need to do. And you'll get 500 milligrams of carnitine in the form of acetyl L-carnitine, which is this exceptional form of carnitine that's supportive of the brain. It's in our memory and brain with acetyl L-carnitine. So now you could get that in a separate little scoop, incredibly affordably, won't affect the taste of your oatmeal or a smoothie or even a little glass of water, just gives it a funny little taste, but not much. But it will give you the most carnitine with nothing added. We'll have some B vitamins in there and a little bit of B12, of course, because it works well with them. But again, as I talked about before, just the right levels. And so that's really exciting. That's going to be coming soon. So the liquid carnitine is going away, but it's being replaced with something that's even higher potency, even more affordable, with no added flavor or anything like that. So that will be available, I would say, in less than 60 days. Actually, there's a dining room table right out there that I have it sitting on, the final samples of that sitting on, that I'll be approving. While we're on that note of powdered products, gradually, for some of you who don't like swallowing capsules, which our capsules are all very small, won't upset your stomach, there's no additives, they're 100% pure, we're starting to take a few products that people take at higher levels and putting them in powders. And what putting them in powders does is makes them really more affordable, because now you're not having to purchase an empty capsule and the capsule filling process and all of those things. So the two that will be coming out first will be our Fibermucil. So we'll have Fibermucil where you could just take a little tiny scoop or a little teaspoon, drop it in a smoothie, in your oatmeal, even in some water, although it will be fibery. You could do that at home. Or our Glucosamine Chondroitin. Glucosamine Chondroitin, because to get the proper levels of both glucosamine and chondroitin, it's 4 capsules. So it's literally a couple of grams of material. So that too, you can now drop it in a smoothie. It will be even more affordable. You can drop it in oatmeal and things like that because it's highly soluble. So those are going to be coming. Gradually we'll do that with more and more products, whether it's Ultimate Eye and things like that. So, and then questions about Veggie Caps. A lot of folks ask about Veggie Caps. Gradually, some of our products are in a Veggie Cap. We don't really talk about it. We put products in Veggie Caps that we want to slow their absorption slightly. Things like our garlic, things like berberine, because berberine can be a little irritating to the stomach. Berberine we'll talk about later with blood sugar. Cinnamon and berberine are 2 amazing products for blood sugar balance, blood sugar levels. But so we've used those products because they digest a little bit slower than a gelatin capsule. Gelatin capsule is available in a matter of moments. The Veggie Cap perhaps 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later. So that slowing takes things like garlic or other ingredients that might potentially be irritating to your stomach, significantly reduces their likelihood or opportunity to be irritating. Right now, Veggie Caps are fine. They just are technically, in terms of delivering ingredients, I don't like them as much. Our gelatin capsules are the finest gelatin capsules you're going to find in the world. They've been validated for over a century. They deliver nutrients perfectly. And I love gelatin capsules. And our gelatin is the cleanest gelatin process you're going to see anywhere in the world. Veggie Caps, when people think of Veggie Caps, the makers of Veggie Caps would like you to think that they come from amber waves of grain, that they're made from some healthy vegetables. They're not. Veggie Caps are made basically from wood pulp, just like paper is made from wood pulp. So Veggie Caps are something called hydroxypropyl methylcellulose. They're hydroxylated, methylated, propylated cellulose, otherwise known as HPMC. So both materials are fine. Just for me, I prefer taking the gelatin capsule in terms of benefit, in terms of what I'm putting in my body. HPMC is fine. The hydroxylated, propylated, methylated cellulose is fine. But I prefer the clean gelatin that we've validated for decades. So that's a question I'm often asked. If someone is a rigorous vegetarian, then of course you could just open my capsules. And eventually more and more of our capsules will be in Veggie Caps, just because certain products I want to retard their dissolution by 10 or 15 minutes. I want to slow it by 10 or 15 minutes. So we'll use them there. And eventually we might make products available both ways, because the other thing, say in a product like, say 1,000 capsule supply of Cholestacare or 1,000 capsule supply of Fibermucil, the difference in cost in Veggie Caps would mean that to you, that product will probably cost $15 or $20 more. So that 1,000 capsule supply of Cholestacare, 1,000 capsule supply of fiber, 1,000 capsule supply of healthy, say a 750 capsule supply of healthy hair, skin, and nails, using the best gelatin versus the best hydroxypropyl methylcellulose, HPMC Veggie Cap, the product will cost, say, $15, $20 more to you in the HPMC capsules. So again, I view the gelatin as working better, and it's more affordable. So unless someone is a rigorous vegetarian, I think the decision has been very straightforward for me. So I just thought, as I always do, I deal with those decisions on a very open and transparent basis, and the only thing I care about is making for you the very best product in the world that's also the most affordable product in the world. So what else? Marine collagen. Where does the tilapia you use in your marine collagen come from? Do you produce a plant-based collagen? I'm not aware of there being a plant-based collagen. And the reason why we use the marine collagen peptides that we use, and it's not hard to figure out why I do things, it's the science. The greatest body of research on collagen doesn't come from bovine collagen here. It comes from collagen, marine collagen peptide from Japan. Whether if you're taking marine collagen peptide because you want to have the most beautiful skin, you want to reduce the wrinkles in your face, or whether you use it as I do, you want to have the best effects on your joints, or I give it to Link not because I'm concerned about the wrinkling of his skin. He has a nice coat of fur. I give it to Link, and what I do is, Lincoln has his bowl of water, and we probably change his big bowl of water every other day. So what I do is in a small glass, I mix about 4 scoops of marine collagen peptides and dissolve it in his big bowl of water. So over the course of 2 days, he probably gets a couple of scoops or so. I do a couple of scoops or so myself every single day. But we choose, and it's farmed marine, and it's farmed tilapia from Japan. And it will be our second Today special in July. As much as I have been for 38 years a fan of glucosamine and chondroitin, I've actually been taking glucosamine and chondroitin for 40 years. And despite all of my crazy sports that I've done all my life, and people still consider my activity level for my age to be a bit crazy, I attribute the good health of my joints to the glucosamine and chondroitin I've been taking. And more than anything, I attribute the fact that I could sit here today and say that, and I am well past 50, and it's scary what the number is for me right now, but I attribute the fact that I I run and hike and mountain bike here and do so completely pain-free. Good genetics, smart that I do my stretching, smart that I maintain myself at my optimum weight. But right now, the marine collagen peptides have just been the single greatest addition to my health and fitness regime over the past, say, 3 or 4 years. Has just made a profound difference. The only thing I regret, we've been evaluating it for over a decade. Why didn't I start sooner? Why am I so skeptical and so cynical about the research that I wanted to see more and more research? And now, as so many of you have adopted it, it's just truly a remarkable product. And again, for us, they often say in politics, if you want to understand why things are done a certain way, follow the money. With my products, if you want to find out why we do certain things the way we do, follow the science. And certainly bovine collagen from the US, probably 1/4 to 1/3 the price if I were making the product. But again, it's all about the science. So sometimes our CoQ10 has gone down probably 90% in price in the last 38 years. We've actually been able to lower the price of the marine collagen. We eliminated the fishy aftertaste over the last 4 years. What you'll find in July for today's special, you'll find it's more granular now. So it's sometimes about 95% of it dissolved before. Now you'll see about 99% of it dissolves. So we improved its solubility even more. So we continue to make the product better and better. So if I could make our marine collagen peptides better, I would. Using another source of collagen just doesn't have the science. That the collagen requires the proper composition of amino acids that emulates the amino acids in our connective tissue and in our skin. Otherwise, you're not getting the benefits. And one of the remarkable things of this marine collagen is how it mirrors, how it mimics our amino acid composition. And in the clinical science and clinical research, people think that the only benefit that this material has is that it then is incorporated into our collagen. Because you can't put collagen on the outside of your body and expect it to do anything. It could have some moisturizing role, some humectant role, but it doesn't get absorbed. It doesn't affect your collagen tissue at all. The only way you affect your collagen tissue is from the inside. Things like vitamin C are critical because you can't make collagen without it. Other nutrients are critical. The amino acids are critical. But what marine collagen peptides also do, these small peptides can be absorbed. Most people who are knowledgeable about the science, what they'll say is collagen is a resistant protein. Collagen can't be absorbed. It's like the animal equivalent of fiber. Fiber can't be absorbed. That's why it works in our digestive system so well. We can't absorb it. So collagen's the same thing. We can't absorb it. No. But the way the marine collagen peptide has been digested and fractionated into these small peptides, these peptides retain the identity of collagen, but they are absorbable. And what they do is they don't just serve a role as raw materials, which they do. That's one of their benefits. Their other benefits is they serve what's called a signaling role, that they actually give a signal to your collagen to produce more collagen, to stimulate collagen synthesis. As we get older, collagen synthesis is not as effective as it was when we were younger, and it's something that collagen is the predominant protein in our body. It's the integrating protein in our joint tissue. So yes, glucosamine and chondroitin are vital molecules that are necessary for the elasticity and strength and lubrication of our joints. But the integrating protein in that joint tissue is collagen protein. Collagen peptides are critical. So that's a little bit, kind of did an advanced discussion. Our today's special on our marine collagen peptides is going to be in about 3 weeks. Actually, a week and a half to our hair, skin, and nails, so only 2.5 weeks to our marine collagen peptides, today's special. So hopefully that was interesting. What is berberine good for, and can I take it daily? Berberine isn't good for something, it's great for something. I mentioned before, we now put berberine in our Veggie Cap. The reason why we do that is because we want to retard its dissolution a little. It's a root. It's a root that's closely related to turmeric. It happens to have, turmeric tends to be soothing for the stomach. Berberine can be a little irritating in some people. Berberine can cause softness of stool in some people. And the way berberine works, you take 1 capsule with each meal. But what's amazing about berberine is just how significantly it could influence not just blood sugar levels, but influence blood lipid levels as well. Berberine is pretty amazing. You should take 1 capsule with each meal. That's the clinical science. Again, as I said, follow the science. The clinical science is 1 capsule with each meal. What I always say, if you're taking berberine, you should also be taking our cinnamon, 1 or 2 capsules daily of cinnamon, and then monitor your blood sugar levels. I think you'll be happy with what you see. Of course, monitor your A1C level, which is really more than just a snapshot of blood sugar. When you get a blood test, you get a snapshot of your blood sugar level. When you look at your A1C level, you're getting more of a long-term video of what's been going on in your body for several weeks beforehand. So it's a greater indication or more reliable indication of what's been going on for a longer period of time. But berberine is great in terms of supporting healthy blood sugar, supporting healthy blood lipid levels in terms of our blood cholesterol level. And again, the way it's dosed is 1 capsule with each meal. In fact, clinical science on berberine has shown it performs better in a medical setting than a lot of products that are prescribed by physicians. But again, show it to your doctor, work with your doctor, be an informed patient, and be a really good partner to your doctor, and follow their guidance. I make sure my whole life the doctors I speak to are doctors who would be speaking the same language I'm speaking to you today. There are not many of them, but there are doctors out there who pay as careful attention to the science as I do. They are not just parroting the information that comes to them from pharmaceutical industries, which I don't even mean that as a criticism, because unfortunately, the pharmaceutical industry is a $1 trillion industry. They exert tremendous influence over the research that is done, over the information that's provided to physicians. So sadly, there's not a lot of information I can know. When I was in school, there was no education about nutrition or the power of diet at all. Yet now, depending on who you read, what science you read, but at the minimum, you'll hear that 50% of disease, of cancer, of the problems we suffer from come from diet. And many will say 80% or more. So how sad is it that most of the disease we suffer from, most of the problems we suffer from are a result of diet. It's a result of the way agribusiness, fast food, packaged food has dominated our society. It's not how sedentary we've become, it's how overweight and obese we've become as a result of what we've eaten. I've said this before on TV. We hear all this discussion of the healthcare bill, whether it's Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act or Trump Care, and you hear all this political discussion. And what I find most disturbing is not a political issue at all. And as you know, I stay completely out of politics. I leave it to politicians. I originally went to law school thinking I was going to transform healthcare and the health industry and medicine in this country. That was my goal. And I quickly realized that as a politician, you have very little control. And so I leave the world of politics to politicians. But the one glaring thing that's obvious, if all we did as Americans, and most of us don't realize, that the level of obesity in this country and the level of overweight in this country it wouldn't be fair to say has doubled in my lifetime. It has doubled in just the last couple of decades. It's just, I say that it's fine, but it's inconceivable. If you went back to say the time of World War I, 100 years ago, and they have good numbers because they were taking a lot of soldiers into the army, they have good numbers on overweight and obesity, that the level of obesity in some states in the US is over 40%, but overall it's well over 30%. That the level of obesity in this country back at the time of World War I was barely 1%. The level of overweight wasn't even 10%. Even if you look in the 1960s, it was probably somewhere around 10 and 25%. It's now 75% for overweight and obesity. So in just the last few decades, these numbers have changed drastically. And if you simply if I could wave a magic wand, and magically the body composition of Americans became today of what it was when I was, say, in college in the 1970s or something like that, the late 1970s. probably, medical costs would probably drop by half. And if that's the case, then we don't have to talk about Obamacare and the tax cuts for the wealthy now and things like that, because it's really tragic that we now talk about, say, potentially depriving Americans of health care, which is just heartbreaking. And I don't think that tax cuts really are justified if that means that people are going to do without health care. So that's the extent of a political statement I make. I think we are all entitled to have some level of health care. But even more, we're really entitled to information that enables us to be healthy. And that's, I think, what unfortunately our government, industry doesn't do a very good job giving us the tools to make healthier decisions. So yes, we really are entitled to health care. And that's, I hope our politicians are smart enough how to figure out that the people among us who need that health care get that health care. And if that means we all pay taxes, then we have to do that. But beyond all that, I think it's really important that if we could drop healthcare costs, and I think even the most conservative physicians out there would say, if we simply made a dent in our obesity and overweight epidemic, that basically all these huge expenses that go to healthcare would just start disappearing seemingly overnight. Right now, healthcare in our country, I think pharmaceuticals are over $1 trillion. If you add hospitalization, medical testing, physicians, all of that, it's over $3 trillion a year. 3 trillion is a number that's sometimes hard to imagine. 1 trillion is a number that's hard to imagine. If you have 1,000 million, it's a billion. If you have 1,000,000 million, it's a trillion. That's the pharmaceutical industry. They often talk about how large the vitamin industry is. The vitamin industry is tiny, and there are probably a half a dozen classes of drugs that are larger than the entire vitamin industry. Statin drugs, cholesterol-lowering drugs, bigger than the entire vitamin industry. Antidepressants, bigger than the entire vitamin industries. Probably sleep drugs today are bigger than the entire vitamin industry if you're simply looking at vitamin supplements. So the supplement industry is a tiny, tiny industry. I think the pharmaceutical industry likes to jump up and down and say how big we are and how many people die taking supplements. And I think every year a few 100,000 people die taking legitimate drugs. I'm not sure if you could count on one hand how many people die taking supplements in a year. And what it used to be typically was pharmaceutical iron preparations, not even typical dietary supplements that might have, say, killed children, unfortunately, because they thought they were little candies. But so without getting into what all the causes are in our society, and there are a myriad number of causes, from the way we eat, that we don't eat wholesome foods any longer, we eat much larger quantities and things like that. But to the extent we could change the way we eat, to the extent we could change this epidemic of overweight and obesity that has occurred in our lifetimes, in less than our lifetimes, that's the opportunity to transform what will bankrupt this country. Our budget deficits are not going to be driven by military spending or infrastructure spending. Our budget deficits are eventually going to be driven by the trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in costs of healthcare. So what I often say, the most patriotic decision when it comes to our budget and things like that starts at home. And to the extent we could live a life that's healthier, we contribute to an overall healthier economy in this country. And I kind of digressed there into a whole different discussion. It's kind of what I say even about the environment. I was going to write a blog, but I didn't have the time to write it, so I might as well talk about it now. Everyone was asking me my thoughts about our president pulling us out of the Paris Accord and what kind of an environmental statement that is. And as I've said over and over and over, I leave politics to the politicians. So whether we're in the Paris Accord or not in the Paris Accord, I still have my solar panels. When we build our new building next door, I will make sure that it's has no carbon footprint and it's entirely powered by new solar panels. So I will do that. We all can make very powerful decisions. We're 350 million people in this country? We all make little decisions every day to save a little bit of water, to be a little bit more economical just in the way we drive. And we start saving inordinate amounts of fuel. In fact, I was going to write a tongue-in-cheek blog the other day that if we weighed the same as we did in the 1960s versus today, then just in air travel, we would save billions of gallons in fuel every year. Probably, what do you mean? That every airplane that flies, the fuel is burned based upon the weight of what it's carrying, baggage and passengers. So if we weighed the same as we weighed in the 1960s, we would save enormous amounts of fuel and obviously less CO2 in the atmosphere simply from that. And by the same token, all the cars, all the driving we do in a year, we would burn less fuel in our cars if we weighed less. And when you're talking about 350 million people and hundreds of millions of cars driving billions and billions of miles, it is significant. And the same with planes flying billions and billions and billions of miles. It is significant, and I suspect it's somewhere in the neighborhood of billions and billions and billions of pounds, if not tons, of CO2 annually. And that, again, that's just tied to our own body weight. So, again, it's kind of funny when you look at these things, how we control so much having to do with our environment. We'd love to blame the government and blame our president. And certainly our government and presidents make good decisions and they make bad decisions. I try to not comment on them. But the one thing we can do, it's kind of what they say about politics and what they say about the environment. You know, think globally, but act locally. That we all have tremendous, whether it's next time before winter, a little more insulation around our windows. Whether it's making sure when the next appliance we buy, make sure we weigh in the decision to buy that appliance, its energy consumption. There's all sorts of things you can do, whether it's double pane glass or triple pane glass or things like that. Whether it's coatings on our glass if you live in a warm climate that reduces the energy penetration. Whether it's simply putting a white roof on our building in Nevada where the solar panels weren't, it lowered the temperature in our warehouse by about 5 to 8 degrees. So there's all sorts of little things we could do in so many different areas. And I just digress and start talking about too many random things, so sorry about that. I also recorded some videos about the best way to go about choosing, say, the right prioritization, how to get to vitamins. I'll maybe do that later this evening, talk about that, how to enter my products. Often what we say is start with Essential 1, make sure you get, which has 2,000 IU and also has 250 micrograms of B12. So it gives you the most two commonly deficient vitamins, so it acts like a separate vitamin D and separate B12. Then say things like omega-3 and CoQ10, the most straightforward supplements to start seeing and feeling actual benefits. And then functional supplements, healthy hair, skin, and nails, glucosamine chondroitin for joints, marine collagen peptides for joints and for your skin and things like that. Someone asked me, can I make my glucosamine product without shellfish? There's vegetable-based glucosamine. It's going to cost a tremendous amount more. I know many people who have shellfish allergies that use our glucosamine product because it doesn't have a trace of those. You could always test the product, but our glucosamine, that is the highest quality, purest, most effective form of glucosamine that's available. And that's why we use it. There's vegetable-based glucosamine, but it will roughly quadruple the price of the product. And I just think that will price most people out of the marketplace, unfortunately. Can I talk about, there's a question I'm often asked, do supplements go bad? Do they become dangerous after their expiration date? Wow, I've been talking for an hour and 40 minutes. So the expiration of the bottle, the expiration date on the bottle, none of our products become dangerous or go bad after their expiration. If that was the case, we would never make them in the first place. It's almost funny that some people would ask that question. But no, they don't become dangerous. The only thing the expiration is, and even products like, say, our marine collagen peptide, if properly stored, that product's fine in 5 years. Even say our calcium or magnesium, those minerals are stable. That product, it will be fine in 10 years. So we put on the outside of every product, there's going to be a maximum 3-year expiration. Certain products where stability can come into play. that we'll put a 2-year expiration on, certain botanical ingredients and things, that at the end of that 2-year period, what might happen is it might be, say, 95% potency, then going to 90% or 85% potency. We do accelerated aging studies and we test the ingredients in all our products. And we will establish with certain products it might be only a year expiration date, because we'll start noticing degradation in potency at a year. So what we do simply is we put that expiration date on the product so you're getting the maximum potency of the product. After that time period, depending on how it was stored or other factors, the potency could be slightly reduced. Say in our botanicals, like our fruitful antioxidants, there might be a slight degradation in the levels of the active anthocyanins in that product over time. And say maybe at 4 or 5 years, it might be at 60, 70, 80% of the label potency versus at the 2-year period when it's going to be at its optimum potency. So again, not dangerous with things like marine collagen peptide or whey protein or calcium or magnesium. These are things that you're not going to see any significant degradation over a long period of time as long as it's stored in your home, properly stored. So not to worry at all. But the most important thing from some of the questions that I was asked, none of them become dangerous. Even our omega-3 products, what happens is the free fatty acid levels will go down over time as you get out past 3 years, but you're not going to have to worry about the product becoming dangerous. So that's I think the most important takeaway. Someone was asking me, can I produce a mangosteen in a capsule? A lot of people take mangosteen for weight loss. Mangosteen is another one of those super fruits, high in anthocyanins. We looked at it a long time ago, but so many fruits had better levels of protective compounds and phytonutrients than mangosteen that we never bothered. I'll consider that. Something that we are doing that's going to be coming up in the future, we have a broccoli extract standardized for sulforaphane in so many of our products. It's high levels in our cruciferous extracts, high levels in our breast health. We have it in a few products. We'll do a standalone. I just sent an email to our product development department that I want to do a standalone version of that in the near future. So certain specific fruits or vegetables that there is science supporting their benefit that we will come out with as separate products. But unlike other companies, just because an ingredient exists doesn't mean that it needs to be a separate product. Amino acids. A lot of people are asking about amino acids. I prefer not to really look at as amino acids as being these separate therapeutic entities. When I talk about the dipeptides in our marine collagen peptides, or I talk about the quality of our protein in our whey protein, our ultimate whey protein, I'm referring to specific compositions of amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. The reason why they're building blocks of proteins, and forgive me if I'm going to digress into biochemistry a little bit, but I'll try to keep it simple. What an amino acid is, its name sort of defines it. It's called an amino acid because on one end of it is an amino group, an amine, an NH2 group. On the other end of it is a carboxylic acid group, COOH group, COOH. So you have NH2, an amino group, carboxylic acid group. And then in the middle is the simplest amino acid is just carbon. It's just glycine. It has what's called no R group. There's an R group, which is the R, like the letter R, that determines the specific identity of that amino acid. So it's something that's hanging out between the amino group and the carboxylic acid group. There's something else hanging out there, and that something else that's hanging out there is the R group, and that defines the characteristics of that amino acid. There's amino acids like histidine and cysteine and proline and glycine and lysine and glutamine and glutamic acid and aspartic acid. And no, I'm not going to name all 20 of them. But and some amino acids are essential amino acids. Your body can't produce them. So you have to get them individually from food. And the quantity and the concentration of those essential amino acids is what determines really the quality of a protein. Certain vegetable proteins don't contain all the essential amino acids. So what's great about the 8 essential amino acids is you could use them to make all 20. The other 12 can be made from the 8. The remaining 12 can't be made into the 8 essential. So what makes our ultimate whey protein the ultimate whey protein it is the fact that it contains such high levels and such high quality of the essential amino acids. And then our marine collagen peptides, it has the exact composition of amino acids that mirrors the composition of amino acids in our skin and our connective tissue of our joints. And again, but how do amino acids, these individual little components, how do they make up protein? And how does protein become this incredibly complex, unique structure that it is? How does protein become the enzymes in our body that potentiates all of the work that we do? And because all of the chemical reactions in our body, whether it's, thanks Ed, whether it's burning fuel. I mean, if you want to burn a sugar cube in your kitchen, you're going to probably need a flame that's 1,000 or 2,000 degrees. Then how do you burn fuel? Then how do you burn sugar for fuel in your body? If I went to the kitchen here and took some fat from olive oil, some fat from chicken, and I wanted to burn that, I wanted to oxidize that, burn that in the kitchen, I'd need a flame that was thousands of degrees. I had some chicken last night. I'm probably burning some of the fat from it for fuel in my body. I'm 98.6 degrees. How am I doing that? And that's all about enzymes. And enzymes, again, are proteins. And they are the byproduct of amino acids. Okay, so how does this is going to be a bad lesson in biochemistry. So fortunately, probably my biochemistry professor from school, they're probably no longer living to cringe listening to me talk about biochemistry. So, but if we talk about biochemistry and we talk about amino acids, so remember amino acids are these things that have an amino group on one end, carboxylic acid group on the other, and in the middle they have some other structure that defines them. And there's 20 different ones. But amino acids, what they all do is they form chains. How do they form chains? Well, the amino acid group on one end and the carboxylic acid group on the other end, they love to interact with each other. They bond with each other. So what you end up is what's called a peptide bond. So, and that's why the enzymes in our body that break up the peptides or proteins we consume, what are they called? They're called peptidases. Peptide, ACE, peptide bond, ACE, enzyme, peptidases. So those proteases are peptidases. But, so what's wonderful about amino acids, one end, each amino acid has an amino end, they have a carboxylic acid end, and they perfectly bond one with the other. So you end up with what's called the primary structure of an amino acid is that long chain. That's the primary structure. But then it gets fun because then amino acids, they then have a secondary and they have a tertiary structure. That secondary and tertiary structure, what happens, because amino acids, each one of them, remember, they're not just the amino and the carboxylic acid group. They have these other groups hanging off that defines them. Those groups hanging off that define them, when an amino acid is present in the aqueous environment, say, of your body, those groups have their own pH, they have their own reactive properties. So guess what? That long chain amino acid, it starts folding up because different parts of the things hanging off it have an affinity for one another. And they fold up into these perfectly structured enzymes that do all this wonderful work in our body. So, or they end up, what happens, they then form these chains into secondary and tertiary structures that become muscle tissue or become collagen peptides. So it was an oversimplification, but amino acids are the individual building blocks that then form long chains with one another, and then the individual properties of, and going back, I'll really digress now, is the actual primary structure of that sequence of amino acids. And my poor guy wants to go out and exercise. Those primary structure of amino acids, that's all driven by our DNA. That our DNA specifically codes for sequences of amino acids. And if there's an error in our DNA, then we'll get an error in an amino acid, and even something like sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia is the result of an error in our DNA that causes an inappropriate amino acid to be placed into hemoglobin, and that hemoglobin error causes the sickling of our red blood cells. So again, it's all something that's fascinating, all the pieces tied together. But for all of us, we think of the quality of protein in terms of, say, repairing the tissues of our body. It's relatively easy with a good diet to get the quality protein we need. The highest quality protein is going to be found in our ultimate whey protein, our secure meal replacement. It is a meal replacement. It has soy protein, a vegetable source, because soy protein has the best research in terms of weight loss. And when we look at amino acid composition, our ultimate whey protein has no flavors added, has no sweetening added. It is the mildest and most delicious and most soluble, untouched whey protein you're going to find. I just mix that in a little bit of water with our marine collagen peptides, and it just has no taste at all, just a little bit of a dairy flavor. But again, when it comes to amino acids, they really are, if you really want to look at the molecules that drive life, I think you have to say it's when we started having amino acids, and amino acids started combining into proteins, and that amino group and that carboxylic acid group could start binding with one another to create peptides. That really marks the beginning of life. And so it still is critical to all the lives that we have, because the enzymes that allow us to do these things that normally shouldn't be able to happen inside a body at 98 degrees Fahrenheit, 98.6 Fahrenheit, that's all driven by enzymes, and enzymes are these protein structures. The muscle in our body, the collagen in our body, protein structures. So again, the proteins and amino acids play an absolutely critical role. And again, I probably digress too much, as my parents say I should have been a teacher, because I just love talking about things, especially fascinating things, science. So I got through 1 page or 2 pages of questions here. And someone asked how long it took to build our Nevada facility. The first building, our building right there is actually 2 buildings. We built 1 building, which was offices in the front, 3 floors of offices in the front, then warehouses in the middle, 40 feet tall, and then production space behind. Mezzanine, 2 levels of production, and also some clear space as well. Then what we did afterwards, we built a second facility on the back that is the exact same, except the offices on the far side. So it's sort of a sandwich in the middle with warehouse. In the very middle is all our production and packaging, warehouse on either side, inbound warehouse on one side, outbound warehouse on the other, because the production takes place in the middle, and then the offices on the other. But probably shouldn't ask how long it took, because Matt Ryba, who is my buddy who does all our construction, it's in-house, but he broke records. I think he built the original facility in 6 months. And that's including 6 months being with our laboratories being clean rooms, our production clean rooms. It was really an incredible feat, and it was all done because of just remarkable preparation in advance. And of course, the city of Henderson in Nevada, the city of Henderson, they were on site facilitating everything from ground break to completion. They couldn't have helped us more. So if anybody's watching and wants to know a nice place to move their business, the city of Henderson in Nevada is a good place to go. So they really facilitated as well. And then the second building, the backside, took about 6 or 7 months as well. We're going to be building a newer building, smaller, on the property that remains next door to us, and because we're going to be getting into some different manufacturing processes. And again, I didn't answer the question completely before. Part of the reason why we don't develop that many products is because we make them all ourselves. So we're not just farming it out to someone else to develop something so we could just sell it. We have to make sure that we go from start to finish, from analyzing all of the raw materials, sometimes creating the raw materials, to figuring out not only what is going to be the best product, validating that product, but then validating every single step of production through all stages of quality assurance and quality control. So another reason why we're not like most companies coming out with all sorts of new products all the time. It's a very patient process for us. So, but what else? Is there scientific evidence that our Cholestacare works? Well, it's our special product with special pricing for the event. So that's a good question. Is there scientific evidence? Sorry for laughing, but yes, there is. If there wasn't scientific evidence, first of all, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration wouldn't allow me to say that the ingredient that we have in our Cholestacare can lower your total cholesterol, lower your bad, your LDL cholesterol, significantly do so, and also help to reduce your risk of heart disease. I can say that, essentially make a drug claim for this ingredient because there is so much scientific evidence. In fact, there's all sorts of publications that talk about the fact that to the extent more of these plant sterols, these natural healthy components from plants, could be incorporated into our country's diet, it would dramatically reduce our risk of heart disease as a population. So yes, there's abundant scientific evidence, and you can bet there is, because the pharmaceutical companies, the last thing they wanted to see was a natural ingredient that was incredibly affordable, that also can stake claims to lowering total cholesterol, helping to reduce risk of heart disease. So yes, there's abundant scientific evidence. You take 1 capsule of Cholestacare with each meal, maybe 2 capsules with a large meal, and your cholesterol level will probably be going down 10, 15, 20% or more. Take it with 1 or 2 capsules of Fibermucil. It will work even better. It will lower your cholesterol even more. Make some good dietary changes. You get the kinds of changes of cholesterol that you'd only expect to see from a cholesterol lowering from a statin drug. And by the way, with statin drugs, I love to talk about this all the time. Most people taking statin drugs, if you're taking one of the longer half-life statin drugs, if you took that statin drug and went every other day, your cholesterol level won't change for the worse. It will stay about the same. In fact, most people, if you went every other day and halved your dose, and only, of course, do this with your doctor, but if you went every other to have your dose, your cholesterol level would only go up insignificantly, but your risk of side effect, your quality of life will go up dramatically. So, of course, this is just some insights to take to your doctor. What I'm probably going to do is post some of the clinical science, I should do this, on some of that in terms of how to use cholesterol-lowering drugs. And for me, the cholesterol-lowering drugs that I find are the most, so to say, innocuous, because they're more powerful, so you could take less to get a better result, are things like rosuvastatin, I guess, which is Crestor. And what is the other one? I forget the name. I think it's a brand new one, relatively new one. Pitavastatin, I think it is, begins with a P. But again, these are conversations to have your doctor. I just find the science and research fascinating, and I find that the fact that doctors don't share this even more fascinating. Zetia, a cholesterol-lowering drug, 10 milligrams is the only dose I think it's available. And it's an effective cholesterol-lowering drug. It works from by a different mechanism than statin drugs. Statin drugs work by affecting an enzyme in your liver. They're a HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor. Zetia works more on the digestive pathway, the enterohepatic circulation. But Zetia, standard dose, 10 milligrams, only dose available, but I'll be able to post a research study that shows that if you're taking 5 milligrams, you get the same results. So you save money. All you need is a pill splitter. You save money and you reduce your risk of side effect. And again, talk to your doctor about this, but I'll even post things so you could print it out and take it to your doctor with you. But so that was a little talking about Cholestacare. But yes, Cholestacare, I wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't make that kind of a claim or discussion unless it was absolutely unequivocally an appropriate claim to make. Someone's wondering, will I ever bring back protein bars? The reason why I haven't done protein bars, at one time a friend of mine who had a protein bar manufacturing facility was making them for me. He and his family sold the facility, so I was no longer comfortable, and we hadn't gotten into making them for ourselves, so I really didn't feel comfortable doing that. We might commence a research process. It's a little bit of a stretch for me because I don't like anyone else doing our work, but to the extent we can kind of come into the facility and kind of take over the process, maybe that would be interesting. So we might get back into doing sort of a secure meal replacement bar, which would be great. And will I include the Phytoceramides in our hair, skin, and nail product? That's from Renee, and for the prior question was from Veronica Zarzicki about the protein bars. Christine was asking if our Cholestacare actually works. It does. And one of the best ways to find out if my products work It was very funny in my industry about whatever it was 10 years ago. So when reviews started being posted, most folks in my industry hated reviews because they told the truth about their products and they would purge their reviews and make the reviews go away. I love reviews. So one of the best ways you could find out about my products is just read the reviews. And no, my reviews aren't perfect, but they're about as perfect as you'll ever come. That most of my products, positive reviews, meaning 4, 5-star, 3, 4, 5-star reviews, positive reviews are 90, 95%. And even some of the negative reviews of my product are, shipping problems or things like that that have nothing to do with the quality of the product. Nevertheless, over 50,000 reviews. I don't have a lot of products, but over 50,000 reviews, that means that the people using them are pretty passionate. And I am incredibly grateful for those reviews, but average between 4.6 and 4.7 stars. The positive reviews encourage me what to do. The negative reviews encourage me what to change. And I read the reviews and I pay attention. I love when you call my customer care center and share feedback, new product suggestions. Those are the products we make. You are really the product development department for my company. So your feedback is what enables me to make exceptional products because I just follow your guidance. From Renee Toma, Phytoceramides, will we put them hair, skin, and nails? Unfortunately, the scientifically validated product when it comes to phytoceramides, the product with the most research, is a liquid. That's why it comes in a soft gel, a liquid soft gel. So it wouldn't blend with the healthy hair, skin, and nails. But to kind of follow on your suggestion, during the entire month of July, because that's Healthy Hair, Skin, and Nail Today Special, and that's Marine Collagen Peptide Today Special. So during the entire month of July, Phytoceramides will be the monthly special. So I'll speak about it at length. Phytoceramides, that's the ingredient that, with omega-3 fatty acids, with cholesterol, surprisingly enough. That's why we don't want to have obsessively low cholesterol levels, that we need cholesterol. We can't make hormones without cholesterol. Our primary sex hormones require cholesterol as a backbone, a structural backbone. We can't, our brain, cholesterol is a primary ingredient in the membranes in our brain, primary ingredient in the membranes throughout our body, including our skin, helping to keep our skin moist. So we need cholesterol. We just don't need cholesterol at too high a level, certainly our LDL cholesterol. But phytoceramides are the central critical part. I'm sorry, Link. You want to go for a hike, huh? You probably want to go, huh? Yeah, he's looking at me. So you want to come up? Want to come up for a second? Come on up. Link. Oh, he's laying on his bed. He's not very happy. Normally we go out for a hike early in the morning, but we didn't today. So we'll go this afternoon. We'll go for a run or a hike. But phytoceramides are a critical part of that moisturizing system of our skin. I'll talk about that at length in July. So it's going to be on monthly special pricing, basically today's special pricing throughout July. Healthy Hair, Skin, and Nails today special on, I think it's July, what is the Saturday? I think it's July 8th or 9th is the Saturday. Saturday evening and Sunday will be the today special. Then 1 week later will be Marine Collagen Peptides. What day?
8th and 9th.
8th and, so the
9th is the TS day.
The 9th is TS day, so it will be midnight of the 8th, leading to the 9th, and all day the 9th. Will be Healthy Hair, Skin, and Nails, and then Marine Collagen Peptides exactly 1 week later. Are there any of our vitamins that shouldn't be taken at the same time? No, no specific. At one time we would have said, say, Cholestacare, because of its impact on absorption of cholesterol, could have an impact on some fats, but in looking at the clinical science and reports that have published since, not a problem. So there isn't any reason. If someone's asking, can I take women's wellness if they have a problem taking hormone replacement medications? It should not be a problem at all. You can show it to your doctor. But in fact, our Ultimate Women's Wellness for perimenopause, menopause, that's what most women reach for because hormone replacement therapy, decades of that, and sadly the synthetic hormones resulted in the loss of lives of probably tens of thousands of women. So today, if you're going to engage in hormone replacement therapy, do it with an experienced endocrinologist, do it with someone who's going to be using bioidentical hormones and is familiar with the clinical science. The Ultimate Women's Wellness is a product that provides basically takes a page out of the dietary book in Japan, where hormone replacement therapy, or they don't even have words to describe the worst symptoms of menopause: hot flashes, night sweats, the interruptions of sleep. But we simply use the ingredients, the natural plant-based isoflavones, and that's how Ultimate Women's Wellness works. It's a comprehensive product with other ingredients as well. But again, I was talking before about our reviews. I would read the reviews on Women's Wellness and Ultimate Women's Wellness, because when you see over 90% positive reviews, I think it gives you a reason for hope. Of course, all of my products come with an unequivocal 30-day money-back guarantee, so if they don't perform well enough, you can return it for a complete refund. But again, with perimenopause, menopause, there's some great research on a lot of the issues and fear with some of the former synthetic sources of hormone replacement therapy were increasing breast cancer risk and things like that, which actually was the case. But now there's some great clinical science on bioidentical hormones and using it properly by a knowledgeable physician or endocrinologist, and just giving you the proper levels of, say, estrogen, progesterone, or both. But that's up to your doctor. But in terms of a natural tool, a natural method without harm or risk, our Ultimate Women's Wellness is something that hundreds of thousands of women have relied on. So, and I've been going for over 2 hours here, but I'll keep going for a little while. So I'm not sure how many people have we had in the watching the, do we know?
At any given time, 400.
Oh, so we've had hundreds of people watching at any given time. That's pretty amazing. And thousands over the chat. What we'll also do is, as soon as we can, we'll get this up online. So as soon as we can, you'll be able to watch the recording of this. So what else? Can I take Essential 1 and CoQ10 together? Absolutely. You could take fiber with them. You could take your Cholestacare with them. You could take your omega-3s with them. I think we all become so concerned because of the different drugs we take, which oftentimes drugs shouldn't be taken with certain supplements, certain drugs, but certainly certain drugs shouldn't be taken together. So, but not an issue with my supplements. Is it best to take them all at once throughout the day? What I always say is it's best to take them in the time that you'll most consistently take them. I say take them with food, not because, like most supplements, they'd upset your stomach. Mine won't upset your stomach, even on an empty stomach, but most supplement ingredients are absorbed best, just as nutrients from food are absorbed best, when the digestive tract has macronutrients, has food in it, which stimulates the absorptive mechanisms in our digestive system. So it's best to take them with food to get the greatest benefit from the supplements. But you could take them all at once. You could divide them up. Certainly, certain things you take at certain times. Fibermucil is best to take with meals, I've found, simply for its cholesterol-lowering benefit as well. Cholestacare, of course, you want to be taking with meals, slightly before or during or slightly after the meal. The same with Cholestacare and Fibermucil. Fibermucil is fine even on an empty stomach, just to get added fiber. And without adequate fiber, you're not going to be regular. It's just sort of a fact of life. And so again, when they work best is when you take them. Taking nighttime is of course, taking it 15 to 20 minutes before you go to sleep. Melatonin, the same thing. So certain products are obvious to be taken at certain times. Glucosamine Chondroitin can be taken any time. I like taking marine collagen peptides first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, but you could take it anytime throughout the day. I actually like it better on an empty stomach, but you could take it with meals as well. So again, as I always say, using it consistently is the key to deriving benefit. So whenever you find that ingredient is being used most consistently, that's the best. To get what they call compliance, that's the time you should take it. What vitamins would I recommend for anxiety and depression? Of course, no nutritional supplement, no vitamin supplement can treat anxiety and depression. The things I talked about earlier, the science on activity, the science on meditation, on breathing. It's very easy, I know, for me to sit here and talk about those things, not suffering from anxiety and depression. But what I'm trying to share is just the experience that I've gotten from hundreds, if not thousands, of others that have been shared with me, and just simply seeing how meditation, how exercise has affected me, my state of mind in my life. So it's hard to sometimes muster the energy to do these things when we're depressed or when we're anxious. But to the extent we can, it's the keys to the kingdom, and that's validated through in the science, and also exercise. There are incredible studies that pit regular exercise against antidepressants, and the regular exercise wins out. So again, follow your doctor's instructions, but a healthy lifestyle helps support brain chemistry. And of course, we have to follow our doctors, but it's very difficult. The medications we have to take for anxiety and depression sometimes become a bit of a slippery slope. They affect our sleep, which then can make matters worse. So it's difficult, and the healthiest lifestyle seems to give us absolutely gives us the best opportunities to deal with these things. There's some great tools out there now where many doctors are actually doing brain scans and trying to understand a little bit more about the activity or the brain chemistry that's giving rise to the anxiety and depression, and to treat it more effectively. And many of them are using omega-3 supplements and vitamin D as part of a nutritional supplementation along with their other treatments. So I would make sure that my vitamin D levels were healthy levels, which likely means taking between 2,000 and 5,000 IU daily. I would make sure that my omega-3 levels were healthy, probably taking 500, 1,000 milligrams. My B12 levels, my B complex levels, so my body's ability to produce energy and all of those basic systems are online and functioning as well as they can on your behalf. But then ultimately, you just need to work closely with a doctor and try to find a doctor that might have an approach that resonates best with yours and with your own. And certainly when it comes to maybe anxiety and depression, so much, beyond brain chemistry, so much is frame of mind. And again, not to diminish how just pervasive anxiety, depression can be, and how we move through the world and how we see the world. But our lives are fraught with challenges. I wonder today how anyone can even move through the world and not find themselves at times anxious and depressed. That especially now we have our smartphones, which are essentially just computers alongside us, giving us a constant news feed. And it's not that I think the media is bad, but the media is in business to constantly keep us drowning in information. And we could live, you go back a few hundred years, you could live someplace that 100 miles away, some horrible event could occur, and unless someone visited once every few months, you didn't know. Something minor happens 10,000 miles away, we know about it. That we are just immersed in bad news. The human brain has a bias toward bad news. The news media knows that, so we tend to be drowning in bad news. So it's not that it's fake news, it's just bad news. So to the extent, and it's not that I want to see the world through rose-colored glasses, but life can be difficult. I've certainly, for myself, created a world that's more challenging than my parents would probably like me to have. But as long as I think we feel we're in control of the challenges, maybe the challenges aren't that bad. And as long as we retain a sense of optimism, and certainly I look at the planet, I look at what's going on in different countries over my lifetime, even for things recently, whether it's in the Middle East or wherever, it just seems there's one problem after another. It's very easy to become pessimistic. But what do they say? As long as there's life, there's hope. As long as we have good health and do the best we can to have our good health, there's hope. And as long as we have loved ones in our lives, then we have a good life. So I think, and I've always been accused of looking at the glass, even if the glass is almost empty, I somehow see something full in it. That I try to be as optimistic as possible, and not to allow the pessimism that's sometimes constantly surrounding us to invade my life. So it's easy to let all of the trials and tribulations of our individual world and of the world around us, it's easy for it to provoke feelings of anxiety, or to provoke depression, feelings of sadness, and even worse, to mild, moderate, or even severe depression. Nothing I make in terms of supplements going to cure and prevent that. But to the extent we could engage in healthier behaviors, Healthy vitamin D levels, yes, are associated with a healthy frame of mind. Same with healthy omega-3 levels. But people who have healthier lifestyles and healthier diets have healthier outlooks as well. Simply taking steps to have a healthier diet is empowering. And the more empowered we become, there's all these interesting doctrines of learned helplessness and things like that, that we sort of become accustomed to becoming helpless, and that provokes feelings of, say, depression or anxiety. So I guess I'm always someone where there's life, there's hope, and I'm someone who is always wanting to take action. That's always been my way. So even when there doesn't seem to be a lot of hope, I'm always someone who's battling. So I guess, as I said before about the environment, about our own health, that we all could take little steps. So when it comes to anxiety, depression, this wasn't meant to be a therapy session for me or for anyone else. But as long as we're alive, and we're all here, it's going to sound terrible to say, we're all here, we're all dying. No one gets out of this alive, but we need to do the best we can to enjoy this gift of life for as long as we have it, and to preserve it for as long as we have it. And all of the little efforts we make pays great dividends for ourselves and for our loved ones and the people around us. And those efforts we make collectively have a huge impact. So no matter how much we might not like the political climate or the people in power, we are very powerful in our own world. And there's one thing that, just as I said, we don't get out of here alive. None of those politicians are going to get out of here alive either. And the world changes, and I'm optimistic that as long as we make good decisions ourselves, for our own world around us, that we influence the people and things around us in a positive way, that it doesn't matter what those politicians do. We're going to collectively exert an even greater influence. That's what I believe. Maybe it's naive, but over the course of my lifetime, I think it's taken hold. And there are large movements of large numbers of people who just try to do the right thing. And that's all we have to do. And I try to do that as a company. I try to do that as an individual. And I think we can all do that. And regardless of what politics might be, we could all do that. So I digress too much there. Why don't I put iron into forms of ferrous sulfate or other things like that to our essential oil multivitamin? I don't put iron into multivitamins because a lot of folks, most folks in fact, don't need to be supplementing separate iron. Also, I make a separate iron supplement that is extremely mild so it won't upset someone's stomach. So iron is something that you absolutely don't want to over supplement. So rather than over supplementing almost everyone with iron in my multivitamins, I make a separate iron supplement and basically make it so affordable. I think a 6-month supply is probably all of $10. That I make it so affordable that if someone needs it, it didn't cost much more than if it had been in the multivitamin itself. Also, iron supplements come with a risk, as I mentioned before a couple of hours ago, for overdose with children. And even though we wouldn't have high levels in the supplement, I'd rather not expose children to risk. So we have our separate iron supplement, and that is it. And we don't have an exceptionally high level of iron in that supplement, again, because I don't want to overdose an individual or a child with iron. So we put low levels of a very bioavailable form of iron. Ferrous sulfate is not my favorite form. It's an inorganic form. It's a cheap form, and we'd rather use a form that's highly bioavailable so we could use less and present less risk if it gets into the wrong hands. What else? So I take turmeric and I'm diabetic. Should I be taking probiotics too? Turmeric isn't necessarily, taking turmeric doesn't mean you should take probiotics. If you're diabetic, it shouldn't mean you're taking probiotics. I think everyone could benefit from taking probiotics. There are more flora populating our body than there are cells in our body. And maintaining a healthy balance of that flora is not only all about our digestive system, but also all about supporting a healthy immune system, also all about supporting healthy neurologic function. It's now clear that there's a connection between the flora in our gut, our digestive system, and the way our brain functions. So we can't escape the impact that these huge populations of organisms that have been with us since the beginning of time, that healthy balance which in modern societies has become an unhealthy balance because of the way we eat, the way we live, the drugs we take, the medications we use. So friendly flora is an important thing. You don't have to take it every day necessarily. Certainly our ultimate friendly flora is so high potency that even 1, 2, 3 days a week, if it fits in your budget better, is a great way to do so. I take 1 capsule every day. I think Lincoln wants me to go exercise with him. So, so again, being diabetic doesn't mean there's any greater reason to do that. But turmeric is something, again, one has no relationship with the other. Turmeric is just an exceptional botanical. Unfortunately, most turmeric products aren't well absorbed or well utilized. Ours is. Ours is also mild for the stomach. But turmeric is something in terms of its protective benefits, its soothing benefits, essentially Mother Nature's version of a soothing plant in terms of inflammation, systemic inflammation. Would you consider offer strontium citrate? I have a question from Gail. I have not seen any reasons for doing so. I've looked at it for years, but strontium is a heavy metal that I just don't see a reason for offering as a separate supplement. Insufficient science. CBD oil. I'll talk about that later on today. That's something that I'm getting a lot of questions about. So Chen's coming up with a formulation for ear health, in particular tinnitus. No specific ingredient for tinnitus. We talked about this a little bit before. Omega-3s, CoQ10 are important for ear health. I had a good question before about, what is it, positional paroxysmal, the imbalance that comes with problems with the inner ear. That it could be calcifications in the inner ear, or it could be stimulated by other causes. And I wish I could say there's some nutritional supplement that could benefit, but nothing in particular. Ear health, a good hearing, certainly healthy vitamin D levels, omega-3 levels, very, very important. I'm just kind of jumping through. I'll get into more questions in detail. What is in your cinnamon blend? What do you use? Why do you use these ingredients? Our cinnamon blend is just all cinnamon bark extract. What we simply did is I used 3 different sources of cinnamon, because when we did our laboratory analysis, in particular HPLC, high pressure liquid chromatography, you see different phytochemicals and different components, and we wanted to give the greatest cross section to give the greatest opportunity for benefits, specifically the type A polymers. And if you read the reviews of our cinnamon product, apparently we made some good choices. So that's all that's in it. Just cinnamon bark extract from 3 obviously different natural sources that give you the greatest opportunity for getting the greatest benefits. What we'll probably be doing in the future is a blend of cinnamon with berberine. We've heard requests of that. So we'll do a berberine product, which berberine has to be dosed 250 milligrams 3 times daily, following the science. Some people take less, but to follow the science, 3 times daily, 250. What we'll probably have is a product that delivers that 250 plus another 100 or so with cinnamon bark. So we're working on that, because both of those have a powerful impact on blood sugar levels. So I've been going for about 2.5 hours here. I think we'll wrap up. I covered a lot of ground. I'll try to cover even more ground tonight at 10 p.m. and again, answer your specific questions. So hopefully I didn't digress too much into political or other areas, but I'm just trying to talk to you the same way I would be talking to a friend of mine who was asking me the same questions, sitting over dinner, sitting over a cup of coffee, or maybe even better, sitting over a glass of wine. Maybe tonight at the end of the show, sit over a glass of wine. But have a great day, and these will be available ongoing for the rest of the week online, recorded. So have a great one. See you later. Well, that was lots of questions.
That's great, Drew. I appreciate the therapy part. I'm going through something now, so I'm kind of,
Oh,
yeah,
well, I'm glad.
yeah.
I'm glad.
You're so right, exercise and all that.
Yeah, well, it's the hardest time.